But today I would like to talk about President Joe Biden calling LL Cool J that boy. And as you can imagine, that is problematic, but I'm more irritated with people in my community because I know that if President Joe Biden was a conservative or a Republican, there would be more outcry about this man calling a popular entertainer that boy. He quickly salvaged it by saying man, but my thing is one reason why Joe felt comfortable enough to say it is because he knows black people are still going to vote for him no matter what. It's only an outcry when it's from a politician or something that or someone that they don't like. And for example, the Breakfast Club. And I have not discussed it in previous videos. And if you happen to be new to my channel, I just want you to know I am not typically a political channel. I will offer opinions from time to time, but this is not my typical channel topics. So, as you know, Larry Elder and Vivek Ramaswamy was on the Breakfast Club. And there's a particular woman on there, I'm not sure what her name is, but she was foul, as in nasty, to those men on her show. And she used her nastiness under the guise of, I'm just trying to get to the root of the matter to see if you are who you say you are type deal. But I noticed the whole that boy comment, they were all just snickering it up, kikiing about it. No outrage. They had more outrage for Larry Elder and Vivek Ramaswamy than they did for this man calling a popular, is it LL Cool J, like a 6'4" man, 50 years old, and he's being called that boy. Now you can say, well, compared to President Joe Biden, he is a boy. But we all know that that is not how he meant it. This is the same president who back in the 70s said he did not want his children going to a racial jungle. Also on that Breakfast Club show, he said, you ain't black if you don't vote for me. That was enough for me to just write him off, among other things, because people are going to say things that you don't like some of the other politicians. I don't care for everything that they say, but if they have policies that I can live with, I'm okay with. So then fast forward to about a week or so ago, Joe Biden calling LL Cool J that boy. And I remember years ago, I'm going to bring up a few scenarios that really did happen. So I was watching this movie years ago, and Lucille Ball, I'm sure you all know her as I Love Lucy, and I don't know the name of the movie or anything, but there is this old Indian chief sitting by the side of the road. He looked to be in his 80s. It's been a very long time since I saw the movie. And she's like getting off the bus or something, I don't remember. And she says to this 80-something-year-old man, hey boy, come here. Let's say people would try to gaslight us into saying, okay, that's not racist. He is a male, right? Boys, they grow up to be men or whatever, or men used to be boys. It's nothing racist about that. Even if you were to try to convince yourself of something like that, it's still disrespectful. Lucy, and I realized it was a movie. It was back in the 40s or whenever it was. So that's how they spoke to people of color back then. But we're still having this issue today. Not as prevalent as back then. But it's still disrespectful to talk to a man that was old enough to be her father or even her grandfather as, hey, boy. Anybody would get upset with something like that. And then let me talk about my personal experience with this. Not the boy part, obviously. But I used to work in an upscale community years ago. You're looking at 30 or so years ago. And this older white man came into the store, and I can't remember what I helped him with. And when I was done, he was like, "Thanks, girl." Well, it was his tone, it was the way he spoke to me, and it was demeaning. And I remember going to my supervisor's office in tears. Yeah, I can be sensitive to big babies. And I explained to her what happened. And I said, and I didn't appreciate being spoken to like that. And so it fast got around the store about, he just called you a girl. Like, what's the big deal? Here's the thing. When I worked at this store, there was rarely, never more than 5 black people that worked there at any given time. There were times when I was the only black employee there, period. And when I say 5, I'm being generous. It was a long time ago. So, so I had this Asian guy who worked with me and whatever. He came to me. He was like, "What's the big deal?" He said, "Aren't you a girl?" And I remember, he had talked to like the white people there first. And then he came to me. And I can't remember everything that I said, but I was like, "Well, you're not going to understand." This was demeaning, the way he spoke to me. And, "Thanks, girl." I still can kind of see him in my mind too. And he's probably dead now because he was old back then. And this was, like I said, about 30 years ago. And then I went to this dentist a couple of years ago. And this guy was probably a good 20 years younger than me. And he says to me, so he's asking me health questions and stuff like that. And he goes, "So all in all, you're a healthy gal, huh?" And I did not appreciate that at all. I was supposed to go back to him for a follow-up surgery or whatever, and I ended up canceling my appointment. I might go back to the office, but I don't want him helping me at all. And I don't like being called girl by people of other races if that's not how they typically talk. Now, I had a coworker a few years back, and we would banter back and forth or whatever, and she would be like, "Girl, blah blah blah." I had no issue with her because it flowed easily from her tongue. I could see her talking to maybe her white friends like that, so I had no issue with it. But it's when good and darn well they don't talk to each other like that, and they figure, okay, well, this is how black people talk to each other, so I'm going to talk to her like that too. No, don't do that. Don't do that with me. I see other black people like kind of glossing over it and letting, women of other cultures, call them girl or whatever, trying to be, hip or whatever. It just depends. It just depends. Because like I said, it depends on who they are to me. If you and I are cool, like that coworker that I said, and she was like, "Oh, girl, blah, blah, blah." I took it from her. Not took it. I just felt comfortable with her saying that to me because I could see her talking. That was the way she talked. And she was really sweet. But going back to President Biden, again, I have more issue with the fact that my community is kind of mum on this. Only because I know that if it had been a conservative, and I lean towards conservatism and, being a Republican. I know if it had been one of them, all hell would have broken loose and you would have been hearing all kinds of "he racist" and echoing back across the land or whatever. So it's, and if you check out my other videos, you'll see that I'm typically not the make everything about racism type of a channel. But I will call things out. Like I called out that, what's that, Tried in a Small Town song. I had an opinion about that, but that's on my old channel. But I just want to know your thoughts. Check out, I usually say check out my other videos, but this seems like